A mist hung like a veil over the garden. Sido, still reeling from all she had been told and the joyful knowledge, for what it was worth, that she wasn't alone in the world, lifted her skirts and for the first time in 7 months ran down the grassy paths. Nearly falling, she steadied herself on a statue of Pan. At last, finding her balance, she took the walk at a slower pace, pleased to feel her leg becoming less stiff. She wandered down paths where statues of goddesses watched over her. The groves were full of birdsong. It did not take her long to discover the metal cages. Pushing back the leaves, she saw aviaries full of wild birds. Thrushes, blackbirds, nightingales, wrens, chaffinches, hidden amongst the foliage. What cruelty, she thought, to do this to birds that own the sky. She was trying to find out how the aviaries might be opened when a group of people appeared ghost-like out of the mist. They were armed with pitchforks, swords, and guns. She recognized some of the servants. "Where are you going?" "To Paris," said Jacques. "We've come to free the birds." He pulled out a key and said almost shyly, "Would you like to do it, mademoiselle?" One by one, Sido unlocked the cages. They stood there, all of them silently watching the birds thrill to find the wind once more beneath their wings. Only when everyone stood empty did they part, the servants taking one path and Sido another. Under the shade of an oak tree, Sido could see in the flickering patterns of the leaves her life already mapped out, her future decided, her husband chosen. To Sido, Count Kaliowski seemed soulless, with his impossibly smooth skin, his face stripped of lines and wrinkles, his features wiped clean of life's tempests. She wondered what pact he had made with the devil, that time itself should not wish to embrace him. She thought back to that evening of the party some 7 months earlier, when he and his great black hound had sat in her chamber watching her. It had felt as if the very air was being sucked out of the room, his presence as heavy as mercury. It was after the fireworks, when she was alone again, that Sido had had her dream. She was walking along snowy treetops. The road up ahead was a silvery ribbon in the starlight. It appeared to be far off, yet it wound its way towards her. There on the highway, she could make out a coach standing diagonally across the road, as if it had just avoided some terrible catastrophe. The coachman was mopping his brow, looking shaken. By the side of the horses stood Jan. She could clearly hear him talking to them in his curious language. She reached out to touch him, and in that moment, he turned towards her and smiled. Then with a jolt she was back in her room. That was when she knew, as if she had always known, that Jan Margoza would be in her life forever. This dream of Jan had idled away many desperate months, and at last it seemed so real to her that she could almost believe he was sitting on the chair by her bed watching her. Today, though, the dream stopped abruptly, for in her mind's eye, the smooth, soulless face of Count Kaliowski smothered her vision like a black velvet curtain, snuffing out her hope of freedom.